Hey guys, I hope you're awake because today we're going to talk about sleep. It's one of my top 3 favorite things to do.
You don't want to know what the other 2 things are.
You got me sleep deprived.
But we do have an expert with us today, Dr. Mark Aloia from Philips. So welcome, Mark, to DHRME. Could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at Philips?
Yeah, so I'm actually a sleep psychologist. I'm an expert in sleep and I help people with insomnia. I help people get better quality sleep. And for Philips, I help bring behavior change into our products and services. So whenever we ask someone to do something with their health, they have to change their behavior.
So what are some of the most common reasons that people can't sleep? Because if you look at Google, that's one of the top search terms. Why can't I sleep?
Yeah, so Rohan, there are a couple of things. First of all, there's can't sleep. That's one category. But there's also just not waking up feeling refreshed. And those are sometimes different things, right? So some problems people can't sleep is a lot of times they're using their devices at night, they have insomnia. About 30% of the population, of any population, of the Dutch population as well, will have insomnia. So that's a pretty big percentage.
That's a big stat.
And then there are people who just wake up feeling not refreshed. That even though they're sleeping, they're not getting good quality sleep. And that could be a whole bunch of reasons.
So we wanted to also look at some myths and bust them. And since we have an expert, let's do that.
Let's bust them.
Devices before sleeping.
They can affect the quality and of your sleep, okay? And there are a couple of ways. One is, if you get blue light from your device, which is it's one of the aspects of natural light, it can affect what we call your circadian phase, so your tendency to sleep on a regular cycle. All right, so it could even decrease melatonin, which is a sleep hormone in the brain. So even if you're asleep, you've got your eyes closed, and I put light over your eyes, melatonin will decrease. Yeah, so that can affect it that way. But the other way it can affect it is if you're checking your work emails and it makes you stressed, that can make it kind of hard to sleep.
And how do the blue light filters work? Because now all these devices, Android and iOS.
They work fairly well. It's not too hard to eliminate blue light. You got good engineers, you can do that. But so I would absolutely recommend that people use that at night.
So people, stay away from your phones, and if you need help, there's a nap for that.
I have friends who tell me, I sleep really well after I have a drink, just before I go to bed. Myth or not?
It's both.
Really?
So yeah, alcohol will help you fall asleep, but it will invariably fragment the second half of your night. Okay, so in the second half of our night, we have REM sleep. That's dreaming sleep. And it's very natural to wake up for a very short period of time after REM sleep. But if you have a lot of alcohol on board, you may spend more time up and you may have a lot more of those waking up moments. So people use it to fall asleep, and it can work for that, but it doesn't give you better sleep.
Okay. Interesting you speak about REM sleep, because that's also part of the sleep training I had to do for my baby, because they tend to wake up and they don't know how to go back to sleep themselves.
So maybe you should stick to milk instead of alcohol.
Milk with a little alcohol in it.
But speaking of milk or any kind of food, is it advised to have any of that before sleeping? Or
So, some people will say that you should have a light carbohydrate and dairy snack like cheese and crackers before you go to bed, about an hour and a half or so before you go to bed. Look, it's not going to put you to sleep if you have insomnia, but it seems what we call more soporific. That means more have a tendency to fall asleep.
Are there any tips from way out there which you can share with us, which are generic and can help people sleep? Or
I think the best thing is you have to, when you're having sleep problems, you got to pay attention to it. And I'll tell you, here's a challenge for your viewers. It's not an easy challenge, but try not to have coffee after noon.
After noon?
Yeah, because here's why. Coffee's a great Band-Aid, right? So if you're sleepy, you have a little coffee, you don't feel so sleepy, but then you have really no way of determining whether you're sleepy and you have a sleep problem, right? So we ask people, how's your sleep? If you ask them during the day after they're caffeinated, they don't think it's that bad, right? But if you ask them right when they wake up, they'll tell you something different.
And these advice, do you follow it yourself as well?
No, I have a lot of coffee.
You have a lot of coffee.
No, I don't have coffee afternoon,
All right.
but I do love my coffee.
Right.
I sleep pretty well. You know, if you sleep well, you don't really need to follow a lot of tips, but when you start to fall apart, you probably need to jump on it or else it can get out of control.
All right, so we spend like a third of our lives sleeping. Don't we ever get tired of it? And you know, I know people who sleep and get away with 3 to 4 hours of sleep, and personally I need like 8 to 9. Why the biological discrimination?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there's variability in every biological function, right? And including sleep. So there are some people, I wouldn't say there aren't many people who need 3, right? But there are definitely some people who are 5 to 6 hour sleepers and they do just fine. And there are some people, and you and my wife, very similar, who are 9 to 11 hour sleepers, and they need that to feel refreshed. But the average is about 7 to 9 hours.
And you hear a lot about, you know, napping in the afternoon becoming a thing, but it's contradicting traditional work hours.
Right.
How do you see that? I mean, is napping in the afternoon really a good refresher, apart, you know, instead of coffee maybe?
Yeah, well, you know, if you're not getting good sleep, the first thing to do is get the best sleep you can at night and get the right amount. If you can't do that, a nap can help. But you want that nap to be 30 minutes or so. You don't want it to be 45, 50 minutes, because then you start to go in stages of sleep that won't come back at night as easily, right? So, but it can be refreshing to take a 20, 30 minute nap in the middle of the day. And some places of business are going to let you start doing that. They have nap pods.
So thanks, Mark, for your tips.
Thank
and
you.
I guess we'll sleep on it and see if we'll reduce our alcoholic intake and work on that milk.
Or we'll just go get a drink after this.
A coffee maybe. All right, you've been awake and we've been DHRME.